Hey, what's up, folks? Welcome back to the Winning Drive. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Pleased to be joined by fellow lifetime Longhorn CJ Vogel. We got a lot to get into on the show. Basically, this show's kind of work like an in-game live watch because as the rest of you out there, CJ and myself, we're very interested in seeing what the Texas men's basketball team does against A&M right now. And right now, Longhorns up 16-15 with about 8 minutes left. Thank you very much, Matthew, in the first half. So it'll kind of work like an in-game live watch, all right, for the entire show. But, of course, whatever you guys want to talk about, Texas basketball, of course, we can get into that. But if you guys want to talk about any topic, throw it out there. We'll try to address as many comments and questions as we can. You guys know how it works. Super Chats jump to the front of the line. You can interrupt the show at any time. Thank you guys for joining us. We appreciate those who are joining us. We'll get into a couple of topics here. Apparently, there's been a leak, if you will. There's been a leak of the new college football, EA Sports College Football 2026 cover, potentially. Allegedly. So we'll talk about that because some Longhorn fans have some strong feelings about it. We'll get into that. And also more big-time programs taking a hard stance on the spring game. All right. There are some programs that are defending now you got coaches defending the spring game and other coaches that are deciding, you know what, we're moving past the spring game. So we'll talk about that a little bit. We'll also get into there was a story that came out in the Statesman about the Longhorns and some self-reported violations. We'll talk about that too coming up in the show. Also, I got a couple of topics that I want to introduce to CJ and get his thoughts on related to Texas football. But of course, right now, CJ, what are your thoughts about Texas men's basketball right now in a tight one? And this is it feels like postseason college basketball right now, and the Longhorns are fighting it. They're putting up a good fight pretty much early on in the first half against the Aggies.
Yeah, this is going to be a physical game. I mean, this is do or die for Texas. Essentially, win and you have a great chance to get in the tournament. Lose and your season's done. Not only that, but Rodney Terry's also likely done, and you also lose to your biggest rival, who's ended your season 2-3 years in baseball as well. So a lot on the line right now for the Texas Longhorns when it comes to this game and the future of the Texas basketball program this year. So right now, what is it, 17-16 going into commercial break. I have not seen a lot of great stuff right now from Trey Johnson. He's 2 of 7. He's forcing a lot of shots. Kind of what we talked about yesterday. Again, he's going to get his, but it has to come in the rhythm of the game. So I'd like to see him be a little bit more passive. He makes tough shots, but we all know, just like with Wade Taylor on the opposite side for Texas A&M, when the two of them have the ball, defenses they kind of ratchet up a little bit. So there should be opportunities for other guys. You see it up in the top left as well. No baskets in the last 2:53 for the Longhorns.
Yeah, just like the discussion we had yesterday, it will evolve. Obviously, still a young player, but a great player. Where when the shot is not necessarily falling for him, he can find a way to manufacture points and manufacture offense for others.
Right.
And that would be ultimately what you'd like to see from his game. But right now, the Longhorns in the thick of it with the Aggies in the first half of 17-16. A couple of topics, though, and we'll, of course, talk a lot of Texas basketball on the show. But I want to get your thoughts about this EA Sports alleged reported cover leak for the new college football video game for 2026. I've been on the record saying I know at one point Arch Manning is going to be on the cover, just don't know when. I assume maybe it would be the 2026 game. Apparently not the case. Apparently allegedly there's been a leak, and several athletes, as you see, and notable college football athletes are pictured here. Thank you very much, Matthew. And several standouts, including Ryan Williams from Alabama, Jeremiah Smith from Ohio State, some other Kirby Smart. Even you can see him over there in the corner. CJ, like I said, I don't know if this is official. Seems like I don't know where the leak came from, but a lot of people are taking this to mean that Texas won't be represented, at least by Arch Manning, on this cover this season.
Yeah, and they were asked to come out. They actually, I believe, were expected to be a part of this photo shoot and last minute declined. So that's the reason why you don't see a Longhorn representation there. The two were invited. NCAA did, of course, want Texas represented more than what is represented right now. And you can't see it in the photo because, again, with these leaks, not the greatest quality, but Texas is represented in this photo here. They got basically a fan off the street wearing a T-shirt. is what. Sarkisian and Arch Manning were both invited, according to a couple sources that I talked
Wow.
to. Yeah, to your point, you see a couple coaches in there. Kenny Dillingham is in there as well. Kirby Smart on the front left. Some really notable faces: Ryan Williams, Jeremiah Smith, Jeremiah Love, DJ Lagway up there as well. So a lot of representation. I don't see, at least I didn't see any Texas A&M representation or Oklahoma. So we'll see. But yeah,
is that James Franklin? Is that James Franklin? Is that Penn State?
So in the front right. Yep.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that is okay. And so that's obviously a bigger plan. Thank you, Matthew. If Texas, you said both Texas and Arch reportedly are turned down the offer.
Yeah.
So that means there's a bigger plan. I think for Texas and for Arch, and I don't know how these agreements are done behind the scenes now, NIL and that kind of stuff. So I'm sure it's a lot more complicated than just, hey, asking a guy to come out and them declining it. So I think now, considering that Arch is the starter, we know there's a team behind the Manning brand that has a plan for the Manning brand, and maybe they just don't want to be on the cover with everybody else. Maybe Texas won themselves. Texas wins a national championship, or once again pushes for one this season. And maybe Arch is on the cover by himself, or maybe it's Arch and Sark on the cover. Have we ever had a head coach and a player on the cover together, just from the same, like one head coach from the same program as the quarterback on the cover? I can't remember a cover like that.
I don't believe so.
Oh, are they pushing for that? Are they pushing for something iconic and something, that unprecedented potentially?
It certainly could be the case. To your point, right? I can't think of another game in which there was. I know that there have been years where there were multiple released.
Yes.
Cups, right.
Yes, regional stuff.
Yeah. So that could be where you see Arch and Sark, but I guess that would have to come at another time for them to come in and shoot that. So I don't know.
Man, you'd have to do, because you have that many. You have Texas on it. You're going to have certain regions of the country that are just not going to buy it out of spite. Just out of pure spite, they may decide, you know what? No, I'm going to boycott the game this year. So I don't know how they're going to do it, but that's very interesting. Good nugget there, CJ. All right, Longhorns up 2017 right now. Just got the ball back, and nice move. That was a good move. Making a little bit of a run here, CJ.
Yeah, they are. This is kind of what you'd hope. Kaluma going down, getting a tough up in reverse on the layup there, 22-17. Now you're starting to see the trends flip the opposite way, right? Texas on, I believe what that says, a 6-0 run over the last minute 20. Look, they're getting to the hole. They're moving the ball well, and this has kind of been a theme, right? The defense has been playing very solid so far. They have a number of blocks already. What we saw yesterday against Vanderbilt was a physical style of defense on top of a team that was driven to get to the paint. And that's a good Texas team. A Texas team that settles for a lot of threes is not a good Texas team. And you see right now, 1 of 6 from 3, the only one that's gone in so far from Trey Johnson. I sat down earlier today, Rod, and if I had time, I had my notepad out, and I was going to go through the last 7 or 8 games for Texas. Yeah. It had team threes, Trey Johnson threes, because right now, to me, it feels like the only guy on the team that's shooting threes and making threes is Trey Johnson. But, hey, if you're making baskets inside, that's where they need to live.
Yep, I'm with you on that. And then you can always, just try to get contact, try to manufacture contact, getting inside, get to the foul line. But right now, the defense is kind of sparking the offense for the Longhorns.
That's the storyline for sure.
Yep. And I'm with you. Don't settle. Get to the basket. Don't settle for jumpers.
It's interesting, though. I mean, so far, and I know that game yesterday against Vanderbilt got to the number, the over number I'm talking about. But most of these SEC games so far, it's been high scoring. Like, it was 83-80, Ole Miss, Arkansas. That was a buzzer beater, if anybody saw that. The Georgia-Oklahoma game, that was another game with both of those guys, both teams in the 80s. Texas right now, 24-17 lead. They're in an 8-0 run over the last 2:15. But this is looking like it's going to break that trend, right? We're about 16 minutes in. Texas A&M has 17 total points.
Yeah.
I believe just forced turnover or errant pass out of bounds. Point being, this is the area, this is the time in which defenses really make a difference in games. And there's no better time if you're a Texas fan to see Kendall Weaver out on the floor in a game where you absolutely need your pesky defender that scratches and fights for loose balls and rebounds. That's exactly what he does.
Yeah, you need that junkyard dog. That's it. That guy that does everything. And he's one of them. He's one of those guys. And right now, the defense, like I said, I love the way the defense is playing, and they're not settling. To your point, they're getting to the rim. All these shots, they're doing a great job of forcing getting their shots in the paint, getting their shots instead of settling for shots.
Right. And look, I live with the missed layup or rim out around the rim.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Absolutely. It's kind of those late in the shot clock situations where we've seen a lot of this, Rod, over the last, I don't know, you name it, 30 games or so, where you got 3-4 seconds left on the clock and you're just seeing someone who's not your primary shooter hucking a thing from 30 feet. And it's just a wasted possessions. In this game, in this postseason, that's a tough move by Tremont Mark. You can't have those wasted possessions, because then they really start to add up and you start throwing away opportunities.
Yeah. Right now, Longhorns playing well on both ends of the floor. All right. Right now, going to a break. I want to ask you a question. We're just talking about Arch Manning. We'll get back to the actually, I got a question related to Texas offense, so we'll get back to the Arch Manning conversation. But I want to ask you this, because I was looking at the Texas schedule. I'm already starting to do my kind of preparation, since spring is now finalizing, at least somewhat finalizing rosters for teams. So I'm starting to try to do prep for the opposing teams Texas is going to play this season. And I've noticed a trend with the opposing quarterbacks. They're definitely going to play better quarterbacks than they played last year, guys. Right. Think about the best quarterbacks you played were all in the playoffs. Like your best 3 quarterbacks you played, essentially were all in the postseason. Am I wrong about that? I mean,
I'd agree with that.
Right? It was Klubnik, it was Levitt, and Will Howard. I mean, those were the 3 best quarterbacks you played. Those were the quarterbacks all in the playoffs. This season, the best, you're going to play better quarterbacks unless, something happens to those guys and the backup ends up playing. And you end up playing with 3 backups this past season. We had a little bit of luck when it came to backup quarterbacks. You're going to play a lot of dual threat quarterbacks who could be playing at a high level, because they'll be multiple years into the same offense. 3-4, some of these guys 3-4 years potentially in the same. I mean, Diego Pavia has been in that damn offense for how long now? I mean, we're talking about maybe 3-4 years in that offense, right? He was in the offense at New Mexico.
Yeah.
DJ Lagway, Diego Pavia, Taylor Green, Marcel Reed, and the sleeper is John Mateer, the young man that transferred to Oklahoma, right? Because the Washington State OC came to Oklahoma and to be the OC, and he was also in the same system. He brought the quarterback with him, basically what I'm saying. So it's the same system that he was in, I think, in the last 2 years, and he's going to be in that system in Oklahoma. And all these guys, and that's not even the common thread is they not only that they're multiple years in the same offense, but they can move. They're dual threats, all of them.
Yeah.
Is that something that's a little bit more concerning? That they're all dual threats and they're all in multiple years in that same system. None of them are going to be really new to this system, those guys. And those will be, I think, the top 5 quarterbacks you'll play that you can predict. It may be somebody that comes out of nowhere, but that you can kind of project.
Yeah, I mean, without a doubt, Texas, to your point, Rod, they're going to play tougher opponents, right? Those quarterbacks that you mentioned, you would probably be able to, if you put out a top 10 from last year to this year's combined starters, you'd probably have 6 or 7 on this year's list alone making up that top 10. And I don't mean that to diminish the last year's defense, because we know that it was a very talented defense.
Yeah.
The one thing that's encouraging, though, is when Texas has played these dual threat quarterbacks previously, they've done pretty well, right? Outside of that first drive against Diego Pavia last year, Diego Pavia didn't really do anything, right?
I agree.
Vanderbilt didn't score really at all until garbage time, and that game got hairy again. I'm looking at the Jalen Milroe game. We talked about what Alex Orji did against Texas at Michigan. It was nothing, right? Michael Hawkins at Oklahoma. Lord knows that wasn't a complete game plan from the Sooners. But what I'm saying here is when you have those edges that prevent and at least have that containment quality to them it makes life difficult. You turn a guy that wants to get out, get mobile, you force him to stay in the pocket, and that changes what they do, right? It's like telling Lamar Jackson, go play football, but you got to wear boots instead of cleats, right? It's different, right? So for Texas next year, absolutely. This is the absolute best year, Rod, to have Trey Moore coming back, Colin Simmons in year 2, Burt, Vosick, Zena, Lance Jackson, whoever you want to name out on those edges, because they're all athletic, they're all lengthy, and they know how to get after the quarterback while already having prepped previously for a Taylon Green, a Marcel Reed, a Diego Pavia, guys that are very much known to get out and move out of the pocket. So that's encouraging for me. But yeah, 100%, they're going to be tested, and they're going to be tested down the field as well. Let's not forget that they can.
Exactly. I'm with, because you're right. I actually, and that's kind of what I was like, man, if you got Colin Simmons and Trey Moore and Anthony Hill and your guy that can run sideline to sideline, they've done a great job of being able to game plan for these types of athletes at the quarterback position. Taylon Green last year, Marcel Reed. I mean, those guys, they made a couple of plays here and there, but consistently their legs were not able to extend plays and able to generate enough explosive plays against the Texas defense. I do worry, though, because it'll be a new defense, and these guys will be a lot more seasoned as quarterbacks. And dual threat quarterbacks I just don't think there is a more unpredictable X factor on offense than a quarterback that can extend plays, that forces you to have to defend the scramble drill. And for those who don't understand how tough it is to defend the scramble drill, as a DB, let me explain it to you. You're just defending 3 plays in one. All right. Initially, I got to defend the play. If he drops back to pass, I'm defending the initial play. If I do a great job on that, he exits the pocket, abandons the pocket. That starts the scramble drill. I have to defend the scramble drill successfully, which is when the wide receivers, is when they alter their routes to wherever the quarterback is deciding to abandon the pocket, which side. They all have kind of predetermined places they're supposed to go in the scramble drill. So I got to defend the second. And now we're probably on maybe 6 seconds, right, on defending this quarterback. And then you got to defend the legs of the actual QB. If they are an elite runner, you got to defend that too. And we saw Texas get worn down with that in the Arizona State game, right? Sam Levy was just running around and just wore out the defense and, being able to, move the chains and being able to extend plays, just kind of wore down the defense. And that's also what a dual threat quarterback can do. So it tests your depth as well. I think Texas will be up to the task. It's just something I noticed looking at the opposing schedule and starting to do some research. They've had a lot of quarterbacks who are seasoned in their systems, but also guys who can make plays with their legs. We got 5 of those guys. DJ Lagway, Diego Pavia, Taylon Green, John Mateer, Marcel Reed. You'll play 5 of those guys next year, man. Those will be real tough tests for the defense. There's no doubt.
Yeah, 100%. And Rod, even on top of that, it's not so much the plays that, like in Texas, I'm trying to think of what the longest quarterback rush was last year. I don't know.
Against Texas? Oh, that's good. Marcel,
I don't know what it would have been, but the point is, you get hurt by those, right? Those aren't fun to see your defense allow those big, long runs by the quarterback. But what hurts you even more is those 6-7 yard little scampers that pick up a first down, or a quarterback gets down so you can't get a lick on him, and then they do it again. I think back to that final drive against Oklahoma and Dylan Gabriel in 2023, where it was just, look, man, he's not necessarily killing you with his arm, but my goodness, those 6-7, and then those stretches into 12 and 15 yard runs, and all of a sudden they're in a position to win the game. That's what kills you. And of course, going back to Arizona State in that game specifically, Sam Leavitt and his ability to extend those drives on top of Texas offensively not playing that complementary style. Well, Rod, you can talk about it. A difference between a 65 play game defensively and a 100 play game in which the Texas defense was on the field for 100 snaps. By the end of that, you don't even want to walk over to do the eyes of Texas. You just want to lay down, catch a breath, and go to sleep, I'm sure. So that's also going to be interesting is because Texas has contained a majority of these quarterbacks. But when you see these guys over and over, that's where it starts to really get after you from a physical, kind of tiresome appearance.
Yep. No, I agree with you on that. That's a great point too. Just how it wears down a D line, chasing that guy all over the field for that many plays. And Texas definitely saw that in that Arizona State game with the result of it. All right, let's thank one of our sponsors before we move on. Then we'll get back to the Texas basketball game here. Texas up 30-22 on the Aggies in the first half. But let's thank our friends over at Flat Creek Estate Winery. Did you know the most awarded wine in Texas is actually vineyard closest to Austin? That's right, folks. Flat Creek Estate Winery is just minutes from downtown Austin, and they've won award after award for their vintage wine, Super Texan. Super Texan is now available at your local specs, so please give it a try. Of course, Flat Creek not only producing some of the best premium wines on the market, but it's also a gorgeous venue with barbecues and wine tastings every single weekend, perfect for a day date with your significant other or a weekend getaway with your significant other. That's Flat Creek Estate Winery. Don't, if you are in the neighborhood, Flat Creek Estate Winery, you can go there for a date, or you can plan a very special occasion. We had a member of the Owen Texas football family recently get engaged out there. So no matter how special the occasion, Flat Creek Estate Winery is a beautiful venue, and trust me, they will accommodate any ideas you have in mind. Also, as I said, they have their Super Texan and some of their great wines over at your local specs. I saw a display at the local Central Market that I go to as well. So the good word is getting out about our friends over at Flat Creek Estate Winery. And thank you very much for sponsoring the winning drive. That's flatcreekestate.com. All right. Right now, the Longhorns playing pretty well. I don't want to jinx it, but this is it's you've watched this team a lot, CJ. Right now they're playing some of their, at least right now in the postseason so far, we've seen some of the best flashes of basketball. Now, last game against Vanderbilt, the last 6 minutes when they went without a basket, that's some of that ugly basketball. But and the postseason's all about peaking at the right time. Man, it would be like I said, it'd be almost like some kind of storybook ending if the Texas team peaked at the perfect time and started playing their best basketball right now in the postseason. I don't necessarily think that's gonna happen, but it would be a true miracle. And for Rodney Terry, I mean, it could possibly get him off the hot seat and save his gig. I mean, I think ultimately that's the story that Longhorn fans are following. Can this team get that hot?
Yeah, I'm sure if you're Rodney Terry, you're sitting here saying, imagine what this team could have done with Kendall Weaver defensively for an entire season rather than just these last, 3 games or so.
Yeah.
Of course, there are other faults out there that kind of diminish that argument. But point being, look, you're going to go into the half here against Texas A&M with a lead. And if you're Texas, I don't think you could ask for a better first half than where you are right now. You led the points in the paint 18-6, and knowing how physical and kind of the personality of this Texas A&M team is, which leads the country in offensive rebounds, let's not forget, this is a really good first half. Now, Texas got to be smarter. They have a couple fouls in this first half, which just didn't make any sense. A couple errant Trey Johnson shots, but 33-27 at the half. You got to be pleased with that. That's ultimately a really solid look. They're showing it right now. They started 7 of 25 from field goals. They ended 7 of 10. So
that's crazy.
You see it, Rod. I mean,
yeah,
that's a good first half. Good first 20 minutes.
And like they just showed, you weren't that efficient in terms of the entire first half. You got to the point where you got really efficient and found your groove toward the end. Hopefully that carries over into the start of the second half. But right now, Longhorns playing some good ball on both ends of the floor with the lead 33-27 over the Aggies in the first half. All right, we'll get back to some hoops conversation. I have another question, or at least another topic I have for you, because I saw a list and I think I sent it to Matthew. Interesting list from Bleacher Report. They were just doing a breakdown ranking of the best duos in college football for the 2025 season, regardless of offense, defense, and regardless of position. So they just want say it could be a best wide receiver quarterback duo. It could be two running backs in the backfield. It could be 2 wide receivers, best wide receiver duo, whatever. All right, that's basically how they listed it. And actually, the Longhorns, just kind of spoiler alert here, but the best, what is listed here in this ranking as the best duo in college football is the Longhorns. That's the
Really?
best duo. Anthony Hill and Colin Simmons they have here
I like that.
as their best duo in college football. I'm not like surprised by it because it is. Colin Simmons is seen as an All-American candidate, and so is Anthony Hill. These guys are considered, top 5 players at their position. But the number one, sorry, go ahead.
I'm glad they went with that combination too, Rod. Because we talked about Colin Simmons winning the Sean Alexander Freshman of the Year award, Anthony Hill being a snub for the Butkus Award, going to the best linebacker in the country. They were far and away the most deserving of a recognition like this. Now, I'm sure it would make a lot of Texas fans happy to see Arch Manning plus you name it, CJ Baxter, Ryan Wingo, whoever. But these two guys have been out there and they've done it. Anthony Hill for 2 straight years, Colin Simmons last year, getting all the honors that they did. Yeah, absolutely. If you were to pick two guys on either side of the football to become a tandem, if we were to just rank our best Longhorn tandems, this would have been not far and away number 1 for me.
Yeah, you talk about splash plays. Both of these guys, we talk about the havoc rate, which essentially is a splash play on defense, a tackle for loss or sack or interception, PBU, forced fumble, those things. And if you're just looking at havoc rate, I haven't calculated every individual player's havoc rate on defense. It's actually something now that I'm going to do because I'm just thinking about it. But just the eye test tells me that those 2 players were among probably throw Jade in there too, probably. But they had to be among your highest havoc rate players on your team. You guys just made the most splash plays on defense. And I think that's why. So I'm with you. I think that's a great way to look at it as an Anthony Hill and a Colin Simmons, instead of a Colin Simmons and a Trey Moore, which also I'm sure could also be in that conversation. By the way, another Longhorn duo that made this ranking is Arch Manning and Ryan Wingo. They're 13th. 13th. Yeah, they got him 13th on this listing as the 13th best duo. So I respect that too, because I think that Ryan Wingo is going to be the number 1. You even said, I don't know if you still feel as confident that you think he's going to get 1,000 yards.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's a safe bet. And again, Texas would play 14, maybe 15 games. What, around, I don't have my quick math, but I would assume that's around 70 yards per game. I think that could happen, certainly. Of course, this is anticipating that he gets that Matthew Golden level of target, right? That target share, that volume that goes to your number 1 guy. I'm expecting that offense to be a little bit more explosive. Obviously, Ryan Wingo, we know what he can do already. So, yeah, I can certainly see that next year. Rod, I wanted to go back to that first duo.
Go ahead.
If I had a first half of the season duo and a second half of the season duo, who would that be for you last year? Because I'm starting to think,
wow,
my second half of the duo season probably is Colin Simmons and Trey
Moore. I remember you bringing this up last season. Yeah. I remember this. Yeah, it's a strong take, right? Was how many? Was the last 7 games or 8 games?
Yeah, was it from November 9th on. So however many games Texas played beyond then, it might have been 8. But yeah, the numbers there are just staggering in terms of what he put on the field statistically and production-wise. First half of the season. And then when November came around, Texas had a bye November 2nd, I believe. So their first game in November, he was a completely different football player.
That's a great point, actually. And you're right about that. I remember when he started making that run because I think you were first on that bandwagon. Because I remember he started slow, and everybody kept saying, I wonder if Trey Moore was overrated. And then they kept asking Coach Sark about it. Sark was like, he's actually playing really well. Yeah. He ain't getting the sacks and the splash plays, but he's actually playing really, really well. He kept talking about how consistent he was, and then the big plays kept coming. So, the big plays coming toward the end of the season. I agree. But that's why I think you got potentially 3 players who could end up getting double-digit sacks. Now, I'm not saying they're all going to have double-digit sacks, but any of those
potential's there.
Yes, any of those 3, Colin Simmons, like this, I'll predict 2 out of the 3 will get double-digit sacks this year. That's how strong I feel.
And then going back, Texas hasn't had 2 guys with double-digit sacks since, was it 2012?
Yeah, it's right around there. It was like Jackson Jeffcoat and Cedric Reed, if I'm not
Yes,
mistaken.
that's it. Yep.
Yeah,
Because I
that
looked
was
this up last year and I was like, oh, Texas could certainly do this, with
yeah,
Trey Moore and Colin Simmons this year.
yep.
But yeah, that's absolutely it. I actually have the numbers here. I went back and I found them. Trey Moore from November 9th to the end of the season, so 7 games there, 20 pressures on the quarterback, 6.5 sacks, 10 tackles for loss. How about 3 forced fumbles, a fumble recovery, and 17 total tackles? I mean, if you, I don't want to say that if you string that together for a full season, imagine what you got, but imagine if you string that together for that's what 40 pressures, 20 tackles for loss, 13 sacks, 6 forced fumbles, 2 fumble recoveries. That's an All-American.
Yeah.
Over
it's kind of what he was
games.
doing at UTSA, right? It's kind of like that season he was kind of having at UTSA, just monster numbers.
Yeah. So, look, I know that there's going to be a lot of attention on Colin Simmons, and rightfully so. Like, I think next year might actually suck for Colin Simmons with how many chips, how many little nicks he's getting from tight ends, running backs, extra guard funneling out with tackles. Because all you have to do is watch a couple of those games last year, starting with the Michigan game, let's not forget, and just see just how quick he is one-on-ones next year with an inexperienced tackle. And Rod, if I'm a head coach, I'm sitting right there and I'm staring just daggers at my coordinator or my offensive line coach saying, what are we thinking with Colin Simmons in a one-on-one?
Yep, agreed. If he's not matched up against our best tackle, then he gets help.
Yeah.
And even our best tackle, I'm reluctant to leave him out there on an island with Colin Simmons in a predictable passing situation. Like this is 2nd and long and 3rd and long. Now, man, I'm chipping that dude. I'm putting a tight back out there. I'm chipping him with a running back every time because his BGO is too nasty. Trust me, guys. His BGO in pass situations, like I said, I do a lot of film study. I can send them to you. Still frames of this dude out of his stance, running downhill and tackles still in their stance. Like he's already on the 2nd step in full stride, and the tackle's like just sitting there in his stand. Like it's scary. So I'm just you can't do that to your offensive lineman. That's just unfair.
What's the Chiefs' right tackle? Is it Taylor something? You know what I'm talking about?
Is it Jawan Taylor? Yeah, I think so. I think that's
remember all those screenshots and stills and all the fans griping on Twitter about
how far back he is?
Yeah, how far back he is, and he jumps a little early because he knows the snap count that well.
Is
the exact same, but on the opposite side of the ball. Exactly. It's the same argument there. It's very funny.
It is. And if I was going up against Colin Simmons, I'd be trying to trade my tackle like, hey man, I need you to line. As far as that ref will let you line back to line up back there, a line as far back as he'll let you, man. Seriously, because Colin Simmons, that jump, it is something. It is sick. We'll talk about the best duos. Texas will face in the first game of the season number 2, which is Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate. So they got him as the best wide receiving duo. And only thing, I love this. So number 1 is Texas duo with Colin Simmons and Anthony Hill. And number 2 is Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate. So what it tells me is we talked about this before. The only thing that really can beat, 2 elite wide receivers like that is enough pressure to put on the quarterback where you make them a non-factor. And it doesn't even matter how good they are at beating one-on-one coverage. It doesn't matter how much separation they can get downfield if the quarterback ain't got no time. So for Texas, pressure works. Right? Every time. Matter of fact, go watch the last Super Bowl over and over again. If you can apply pressure, especially organically, which Texas, I don't know if it can always be organic, but they get enough pressure on Ohio State, whoever the starting quarterback is, which that's another one. I didn't even think about who their starting quarterback is. That is he, and whoever it's projected to be. If that guy is mobile, we talked about the other guys, that could also be a bit of a stress factor.
Yeah, definitely. Julian Sain is kind of the front runner right now. He can move. I wouldn't say he's a guy that looks to run. So a guy that extends, but not necessarily uses as a big time weapon in his arsenal.
Functional mobility.
Yeah.
Harrison Saunders here says, I predict that Ryan Wingo will lead the nation in defensive PIs against him. That's good. Texas didn't have a lot of these. I want to say, I got to go look it up. Texas didn't have a lot of PIs like they forced PIs.
That's
Not
a
a ton.
really interesting take.
That is good. I like that, Harrison. That is good.
You see it a lot with kind of those bigger build wide receivers, right? I remember DeAndre Hopkins, Julio Jones,
Yep.
those guys would just
Yep.
they'd get mauled in man coverage. The question is how many teams will
Put
lend
you in
their
man.
corner or safety to playing man coverage against Ryan Williams. Or sorry, Ryan Wingo.
Yeah. That's a great question. Yeah. How often? Yeah, for a few schools they play it. Georgia could do it, and it depends on the DBs, but
shoot, if Texas played Clemson multiple times last year, they absolutely would have been in there because look, they found something with Avion Terrell.
Right.
I think in the Clemson game and Ohio State game combined, there was probably 5 or 6 defensive pass interference penalties. Avion Terrell and the cornerback opposite at Ohio State, he had what? I was tweeting it all week, probably 15 or 16 penalties on the season. Like, just keep targeting the guy. Just keep going at him.
That's a great point. Yeah, because when Sark found, remember in the Alabama game, like it was at 2022, remember he found that corner that basically they got like two PIs on him in a row. Sark will do that. He finds out there's a grabby corner. He's like, all right, now we're going at him. We go double move over there. Or we're gonna run a 9 route on him. Let's go. I appreciate that about Sark. All right. No, thank you for pulling that up, Matthew. Let's thank another one of our sponsors before we move on. Let's thank our friends over at South Point Dodge. South Point Dodge, folks, if you're trying to score an easy extra point, you can score an easy extra point this season when you get to the point with our friends over at South Point Dodge. South Point Dodge has over 600 vehicles in stock right now, including a great selection of Ram 1500s, 2500s, and 3500s. Whatever your truck needs, South Point Dodge is your one-stop shop. So score big today at South Point Dodge. Speaking of scoring big, you can do so right now with a great deal happening at South Point Dodge with over 50 Ram 2500s, all of them marked down with huge savings over at South Point Dodge. Now you can go check out their exclusive inventory. You can see it right there on your screen over at South Point Dodge off of I-35 in South Austin, or you can go online, make it easy on yourself and go to southpointdodge.com and you can check out their inventory there as well. So whatever your car or truck needs, South Point Dodge is your one-stop shop. Austin's automotive everything, whether you're looking for a trade-in or whether you're looking to buy something new or used, South Point Dodge can make sure that you get the deal that you want over at southpointdodge.com. I really appreciate them for being sponsors of the Winning Drive and being a part of the Orange Texas football family. Since Harrison was talking about he thinks Texas Ryan Wingo will lead college football enforced PIs, and I kind of like that. I like how specific it is, and it makes a lot of sense. Big body wide receiver start taking shots if he's in one-on-one, or at least Arch taking shots if he's in one-on-one. I was looking at where Texas is considered elite. Elite to me is when you're like top 15 in a certain category, as a team, right? In a team stat. Now, defensively, Texas was top 15 in damn near every major statistical category. That's how good the defense was. We'll have the conversation later on this offseason about historically how good that Texas defense was, because it's in the conversation to be an all-time great. But if I would ask you, CJ, where do you think, if you had to predict where Texas was going to be elite next season, or where they'll be one of the national leaders, any category, any player, any statistical category or situation, doesn't matter. What do you think Texas will be that kind of outlier or an elite team in that specific category or situation or stat?
There's 2 for me. The first is sacks. I think that's a given with Simmons. The other one might be a little interesting, but how about yards per attempt offensively?
That's good.
That basically to me just means how efficient are you in terms of racking up yards with as little pass attempts as possible. I'm thinking that with Arch Manning, you're going to see the deep ball return. I'm thinking with the way that this room looks right now, again, I think of Ryan Wingo, I think of DeAndre Moore. They've already shown to have success in their respective positions going deep. What you brought in with a Clay Clockett, Jamie French, Michael Terry, those guys also can stretch the field. They have big frames, relative speaking, to other wide receivers. Parker Livingstone, with his speed, with his size, I think Texas will go get a portal body as well that can go deep. I'm thinking that you're very efficient throwing the ball vertically down the field, Rod, and as a result, you're going to see a lot of yards and not as many pass attempts, which you talk about it. I don't want to get the coach wrong, but when you quote, having a 5-play drive versus a 20-play drive, well, the
Yep.
margin for error there is significantly higher due to just human error. For
Mm-hmm.
Texas, we saw an increase in interceptions this year for Quinn Ewers, but I think they had to do that because they couldn't rely on a run, right? They couldn't necessarily sit there and grind games out the way that they wanted to, picking up yards on the ground. But also, those pass plays were going for what, 5 to 10, maybe a 15. You wouldn't necessarily see those shot plays that would end drives, get you
Yep.
off the field and waste or, kind of cut down that clock. So I'm thinking yards per attempt is an area in which you look at it and say, yeah, Texas is right up there with probably some of the top teams in the country.
Great minds think alike. Because I didn't go yards per attempt, CJ, but I went with deep ball rate,
Okay.
which they can be connected. Yes, I think I agree with you about the sacks and it kind of tackles for loss, forcing negative plays. I think Texas will be very disruptive with all those havoc-minded players we talk about. Anthony Hill, Colin Simmons, Trey Moore. But deep ball rate, I went and looked at because I remember you wrote a piece about this at On Texas. Great, with a great breakdown that Arch Manning's deep ball rate right now over 21% in the very small sample size this past season, over 21%. Michael Penix led college football in 2023 with a 21% deep ball rate. he was like one of the national leaders in deep. Remember, you actually covered. I remember you Brad a breakdown about that too because he was like one of the national leaders in deep ball rate. And Quinn was always hovering around 12%. I think he was at 12.4% last year, 11.9% in 2023. I think Arch digs the long ball, and I think that's what I think. Texas is going to be one of the national leaders in deep ball rate, and if they connect on enough of them. Like kind of you said, yards per attempt. I think that also will affect his yards per attempt, and I think that'll be relatively high as well. So we'll see if we end up being right, but the small sample size does lend credence to your projection and your prognostication.
I like that, Rod.
Yeah, man. The deep
and I think Texas fans will like that. Again, if you're hooking the ball and you're having success throwing the fireworks, recruits are going to enjoy it. The highlights are going to be there. Imagine I was watching a 2024 Texas highlight reel the other day. Guess what the most viewed plays were? It was Arch to Wingo for 75. It was Arch to Moore for 55 right before halftime against Mississippi State. Quinn finding Wingo against Vanderbilt on that slant or on that post slot fade. I mean, you have all sorts of deep balls that just get exciting, and the more you have of them, the more you're going to be on SportsCenter Top 10, the Twitter reels, whatever. So it's good. It's good for the program if this is a reoccurring theme throughout the entire season.
I think it will be. I remember saying when Texas was playing Washington back-to-back years, I was saying Sark actually envies that Washington offense because he wants to be as efficient in the deep ball category as Washington was, because they were like the best deep ball passing team in the country. It's possible with Arch in there that could happen. And with the right now, Longhorns up 36-35. Aggies claw their way back into this thing, and it's tight again. All these games are going to come down kind of to clutch time to me and how you perform in clutch time. It wasn't the case versus Vanderbilt in the first round, but man, DPU going to the postseason, it's going to come down to clutch time. Last 5 to 6 minutes of the game.
Clutch time and free throws.
Oh.
So, yeah, that looked like a foul.
Yeah, it did. Aggies, right now, got some momentum on their side.
Yeah, not great. Not great there. Texas went in with a 6-point lead already at 2 minutes in, basically. We're looking at a tied ball game. So, both Texas Teddy, we absolutely are keeping a side eye on this game. We'll see how long we make it into this second half here before I guess A&M just blows it open. But that's kind of where I'm sitting right now, thinking Texas has to continue to keep the foot on their gas. They've already missed 2 free throws on a 3-point attempt, and now have already succumbed to the Aggies in the lead here. So,
yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah, unfortunately. They were doing such a great job at the end of the first half, too. I thought they figured it out. Looks like the Aggies made their adjustments. All right. We'll keep, of course, breaking down Texas basketball. and keep talking about what we see here. But getting back to a couple of Texas football topics, I wanted to talk about because Dan Lanning is the latest coach that has declared that they are going to have a spring game. And apparently, coaches are kind of taking hard stances either way. Remember Dabo, I think was another coach who said they are going to have a spring game. So I found kind of a master list of coaches and what they said. Kalen DeBoer said they're gonna have a modified spring game. Arizona said they are not holding a traditional spring game. Boston College said they're closing spring practice to the public, but they are going to have a scrimmage instead of a spring game. Uh, I think actually BYU is one of those teams that has not announced or not going to hold it. Cal says they are going to have a spring game. Florida State have called off their 2025 spring game due to renovations or something like that. I think that's the reason that they gave. Illinois won't have a televised spring game. They're concerned about people poaching their players. Brett Bielema told ESPN that his players will go through the same type of format for a big scrimmage at the end of the spring. Iowa told the reporters that the Hawkeyes are not expected to host a traditional spring game, so that's not happening. They're going to have some fan event, kind of like Texas. Missouri, Eli Drinkowitz announced the Tigers will not hold a spring game in 24 or 26. He said the annual tradition will not happen for the next 2 years because of construction, so they're going renovations as their excuse as well. I think Minnesota has not announced yet. They're one of those teams that has announced. NC State head coach David Dorn decided to close all of their spring practice to the public and will not host a spring game either. Matt Rule, of course, called off their spring game. He cites tampering. North Carolina actually will have a spring game. Actually, no plans for a spring game, but Bill Belichick said they are going to have a traditional spring, and he likes the spring game format, but they have not announced either way. But the reports are they're probably not going to have a spring game because either way they would have announced it by now. Ohio State, due to the length of the season, Ryan Day has called off their spring game. They're not having one. Oklahoma, instead of traditional scrimmage at the end of the spring practice, Oklahoma is holding what they call a Crimson Combine. And so that's going to be a little bit different. Ole Miss will have its second edition of the Grove Bowl games, which is kind of competition for, it's like a field day. So they're not having a spring game. UCF said they'll allow fans to attend 2 of their practices, but no spring game. USC will not hold a scrimmage this spring due to the risk of injury. So they're out on the spring game format as well. So seems like most teams are just kind of using, or at least most programs are using different excuses, whether it be renovations, tampering, whether it be the schedule in general, whether it be wear and tear on the players, whatever. Most big-time programs are deciding against spring game formats. Like I said, there are a few that are still deciding to fight the good fight. That's Dan Lanning is fighting the good fight. Dabo Swinney's going to fight the good fight too, of course, and try to keep the spring game format. But CJ, I can't see in the next 3-4 years, I don't know if there will be any top 20, 25 program that'll be having a spring game at all.
Yeah. It's kind of unfortunate. Spring games were fun, but look, I get it. You want to preserve your players. You want to make sure that your roster is not getting poached. But look, there's a big part of it that was great for the fans and coming into Austin or coming into whichever respective city it was, and just being able to see what the next team looked like, right? You've been hearing about it for 14 practices. You want to get a glimpse of it. There were some great highlights from last year, right, that we got to talk about, right? Trey Owens was one. Arch, obviously, another. It's going to be interesting as well what this does to recruiting, because that's a big weekend, and teams fight for that weekend pretty often. Now, last year, I think Texas actually kind of pivoted and said, hey, come in on a Tuesday, come in on a Thursday, and get to hang out with us on the practice fields at Dennis, and then hang out, eat lunch, and come hang out at the facility with us so we can spend some one-on-one time together. I think that might bode well or better for recruiting in the long run. But at the end of the day, when you have something that you can just point to and say, hey, this is the day, circle it and get out here, yeah, that's going to stink. So I don't know, Rod. I feel like I don't think the on-field kind of product in the fall is going to take a hit. And I don't think fans should worry about that at all.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think I think coaches have been looking for a reason, and now they got a few of them. They got a few reasons to get at least two. They all want spring to be a blank canvas so that they can do with spring and those 15 practices whatever they want. And I said, honestly, I think they're just tired of the spring game dictating the spring format and schedule. And now that you can kind of get rid of the spring game, you really can do with whatever you want with the spring. You can, format it however you want to. It doesn't build to a crescendo, to an apex where, all right, now we're showcasing our team in the spring game. So I just think it's about that. My man Jeff says about, they won't control, coaches won't control because they're all control freaks. It's probably similar to something like that. They're just tired of people telling them what to do with spring practices. And mostly the college football landscape is changing so drastically. I can't blame them. I can't blame them at all. All right. Matter of fact, before we get back to obviously talking about Texas basketball here, and we got a couple of questions that I want to get to, let me tell you about our friends over at Von Lane, folks. Now, a lot of you out there have been traveling in between the three major cities in Texas, whether it be Austin, Dallas, or Houston. I've done it several times. I've driven to Austin, Dallas, and Houston. I've flown in between those cities, and trust me, it could be a hassle. It could be way more stress than it's worth it. The smarter way to travel between major Texas cities, folks, is Von Lane. And for out-of-state listeners, Von Lane now connects major cities outside of Texas like Nashville, Memphis, and Atlanta. But let's face it, flying is a hassle. All right, security lines, packed gates, delayed flights, all for an hour flight. It's not worth it at all. Driving isn't much better. You ever tried same-day round trip between Dallas and Austin, or Dallas and Houston, or Houston and Austin? That's hours of lost productivity, emails piling up, calls going unanswered, and work left undone while you focus on the road. And you got traffic, not to mention that also can be a bit stressful to deal with. Why waste a day when you could stay connected and productive with Von Lane? Von Lane changes everything. It's luxury regional bus travel, what some call a private jet on wheels. I can personally testify to that because I've actually been on Von Lane several times. I've taken the Von Lane from Austin to Dallas. I've taken the Von Lane from Austin to Houston. It is a fantastic trip, folks. You can sink into a plush leather seat with leg rest, stay connected with complimentary Wi-Fi, enjoy complimentary snacks and drinks on every trip. Plus, they have delicious meals on select departures. If you need to freshen up, they even have hot towel service. If you want to relax, they have eye masks and pillows and blankets to keep you cozy. The Von Lane team take care of every detail so you can sit back, unwind, and enjoy the most comfortable travel experience on the road today. Now, if you're traveling for business, you can recapture productivity. I've done it. You guys know I like to do a lot of research. It's a great way to research on the road. But if you're just traveling for a vacation or for leisure purposes, you can sit back, relax, and be pampered. And if you're planning, say, a special trip, say it's a guy's trip, say it's a bachelor party, bachelorette party, say it's a wedding trip for something, or maybe a football game or a concert or any special event, you can charter your own Von Lane coach for the ultimate group experience. Von Lane is first class travel without hassle. See for yourself. Visit vonlane.com. That's VONLANE.com and use the promo code OTF25 for $20 off your first trip. That's vonlane.com and OTF25. You'll get $20 off your first trip. Thank you very much to Von Lane for sponsoring the Winning Drive and being a part of the Orange Texas football family. All right, a couple of questions here. It's CB. I like this. CB wants to know who's in the circle of trust. Well done, man. Well done. I see what you did there, CB. All right, the circle. It's a circle. I like that. Right now, honestly, I only see two guys in it, DeAndre Moore and Ryan Wingo. And I think that we're looking at the possible expansion of it to Parker Livingstone. I think the projection is he's going to be in it. Man, right now, that's about as far as I'm willing to go, CJ. I actually don't know who's going to be in the circle of trust. We talked about this last year around the same time, and my prediction was the circle of trust would expand and it would be more expansive than ever before. I think it was pretty expansive, but this season, I don't know, it may shrink back down to three guys. I mean, Sark, remember his first couple of years, it was pretty much a three-man rotation at wide receiver.
Yeah, I bet it eventually gets to four because you don't have that proven commodity at tight end. So you don't have that extra option there, right? So who are those guys right now? Look, we know it's Ryan Wingo. We know it's DeAndre Moore. That next guy up in my eyes is Parker Livingstone. And then who joins that group? Is it a portal guy? Is it Jamie French? I think those are the two that I would argue have the best chances. Obviously, if they go get somebody out of the portal, it's going to be somebody that can contribute and make a difference on the field immediately. So it's small, Rod. I don't think, I think this time last year, we were talking about maybe expanding to 5 or 6, when you consider outside of Bond, Golden, Wingo, Moore, you also had Bolden and Cook. Well, you don't have that group of experience, right? It's all about what have you done inside the house already, and there just hasn't been a lot of it. So yeah, Wingo, Moore, Livingstone, portal is kind of where I'm sitting. Maybe a Jamie French if he shows to really catch on quick and get a hold of that playbook.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. Yeah, one of those freshmen has got to step up into that role. I'm with you. I think they'll give them every possible opportunity. And this spring, with DeAndre Moore being out, a lot of guys going to get reps to see what they can do there. All right. Also, my man CB says that it is the best Ahmad Brooks story because today is Ahmad Brooks' birthday. I didn't realize that it was Ahmad Brooks' birthday. So happy B-Day to my man Ahmad Brooks. Best Ahmad Brooks story. Oh, man. He also says it's DeAndre Moore and Tristan Thompson's birthday. I didn't realize that. I mean, Stevie does a great job keeping up with the B-Days. DeAndre Moore's B-Day and Tristan Thompson. Yeah, Tristan Thompson. Wow. Man, did anybody ever see Tristan Thompson's career and he's got a life venturing into the Kardashian world? I don't think anybody ever saw that coming. And now Tristan Thompson is like this kind of pop culture
entertainment round.
Yeah, he's like people know who Tristan Thompson is. They have no knowledge of his basketball career or achievements. They know him from the pop culture side that he was with the Kardashian. That's basically what they know Tristan Thompson for. Kind of some crazy stuff. Anyway, but best Ahmad Brooks story. I don't have any good PG-13 Ahmad Brooks story. I lived with Brooks for a long time. Me and Brooks lived together a couple of times. So me and Brooks we had some wild times. I really don't have a ton. The best thing I'll say about Ahmad Brooks was my man Brooks when he first, because he started at corner. I want to say that was 1999. He was starting at corner. When I first got here, Brooks was starting at the corner spot. And he lost his starting job at the corner spot because me and Jammer ended up being the starting corners and lost his starting job. This dude is such a beast, has such a dog in him. He just moved to safety and took somebody else's job. That's what kind of dude he was. He didn't get upset about it. He didn't pout about it. He was just like, all right, well, he's the one, if I'm not mistaken, I believe he is the one that wanted to move positions, if I remember how it works. That it was him. Because he's just like, no, I want to play. And if you got that dude ahead of me because you think that Quinn Jam and Rod Babers are better, corners than me, then that doesn't make them a better DB. Where can I get on the field and play? And he won the starting job at safety.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a ball player right there in the secondary.
Beast, dude. He just has the spirit of a Wolverine. Dude, there's just no give up there in him at all. So that's the best thing I can tell you about him. He earned so much respect to all his teammates when he just went and took somebody else's job. He got his job taken and went and took somebody else's job. And we had one of our best, and it might have been because Nathan Vash ended up being the other safety. It might have been the best secondary that I played in while I was at Texas. That was a really good secondary. Yeah. Led 01 defensive tackles. No, exactly. He was a former quarterback in high school, so he actually was really good at safety and diagnosing route combinations and being able to tell when quarterbacks were checking a certain passes or they were checking to a run because he himself was a quarterback coming out. So he kind of understood the game within the game, made him an excellent safety, an excellent safety. And you just never would have thought a guy, he was shorter than me. Brooks was shorter than me. I got measured at 5'8" 3/4. Dude shorter than me ended up starting at safety. Beast, man. Telling you. And that's another story about Coach Aquina. That's why these guys will like Coach Aquina. Coach Aquina, he wants to play the best 5 DBs. And he will there's 3 or 4 guys. Adrian Phillips got a story like that. There are a bunch of guys who have stories like that where they couldn't win a job initially where they were projected to play for Coach Aquina. And Coach King was like, man, I like you. You think you can win a spot? You can win that safety spot or win that corner spot? And they're like, all right. And he'll let you do it. And if you're better than the guy ahead of you, you will play. That's what I love about Coach King. It's true meritocracy. If you're the best player, you're going to play.
I like
it. May shock people, too. Be like, that guy's better than that guy? Yeah, he's playing. Yep. All right. Thank you for CB for the recognition. Shout out to those guys having birthday. DeAndre Moore, Tristan Thompson, and my man Ahmad Brooks, lifetime Longhorns. All right, got a couple other questions. I know we're getting close to the end of our live stream. I'll take a couple more questions and then we'll end it here. How about this one from Christopher Weatherford? It says, talk to me, guys. How many O-line you predicting leaving us during spring portal? That competition is stiff. It certainly is, Christopher. I agree with that. Thank you for the question. CJ, you and Jeff were talking about this, and you think that's maybe one of the only places where there are some guys who are in a kind of a prove it or move it situation on the offensive line.
Yeah, there's just so many people there. You can only play 5. There's probably 7 or 8 right now in the conversation to go push for a spot. So, yeah, I could certainly see a guy, maybe 2, entering the portal. Of course, we'll wait and see. I know that there's been rumors in the past about, specific guys not necessarily seeing the field a whole lot that have wanted to enter the portal, and they have yet to. So when you hear that, Rod, you always have to keep them back of mind of, well, the window's open again. What will they do now? So I'd say there's probably 2 that I'm keeping a pretty close eye on. But again, Texas has done a pretty solid job of retaining that offensive line. Aside from Peyton Kirkland, you haven't seen much attrition. So will this be the year? We'll see. Otherwise, I think they'll be just fine with depth there.
Yeah. I know. Shout out to the Pancake Factory. It's got to be one of the reasons you don't see a lot of guys just jumping in the portal on that offensive line. They've done a great job of retaining talent. Texas boy Teddy says, do you think Sark encourages D Moore to sit the spring so he can get more work with younger cats so we don't rely on a portal gamble? Thank you, Texas boy Teddy. He essentially said this spring there's going to be less emphasis on the veterans and the proven commodities and the proven players. He essentially said that's going to be a high priority on the younger guys coming in and some of the newer players stepping into roles. And that's why they're going to go to teaching instead of their usual 2 spot. And they're going to go back to one field and it's going to be more of a teaching spring, which is also one of the reasons he said he doesn't want to have a spring game, because right now our emphasis is not on performance. Right now our emphasis is on educating and teaching the guys our ways, our culture, and of course the schemes and the technique and the fundamentals too. So I think you're right about that. I think D Moore's proven himself. We know D Moore can play. I don't need to see anything from D Moore. I don't need to see nothing from Ryan Wingo either. I'm good. I'm cool if they give most 95% of those wide receiver reps. I'm cool if they give them to the young guys, not Ryan Wingo and DeAndre Moore, because I don't know if those guys need them in the spring. And I think that's, if I'm not mistaken, CJ, I believe that's kind of the process. I mean, the mentality going into this spring.
Yeah, I would agree. Again, just get to full health. Make sure that you're ready to go for the fall. Make sure it doesn't linger anything into during the summer. The one thing I would argue is I'd like to know for certainty that they're on the same page with Arch Manning, right? Because I know that they were right there with Quinn. With Arch, look, I know that Arch has been in the program for 2 years. I know that he knows the playbook. There's always going to be that little discrepancy between quarterbacks when you make the transition. So just to know that they're there in terms of rollouts, what does he prefer? Little hand signs, Rod. Is there anything specific when you line up in a team situation or a team setting that these guys can pick up now versus in the fall? I'd like to at least get some run there. But yeah, otherwise don't strain them out. Don't make sure that they're running to the ground. Get these young guys some run. But on top of that, we do know that Texas is going to go get at least 1 out of the portal. So we'll see.
Yeah, I agree with that too. No doubt. Just in case, as a insurance plan potentially. All right, Longhorn men's basketball up 50-48 on the Aggies. 11 minutes left in the game. Nice shot. All right, Longhorns up 52-48. All right, thank you to all you guys out there for your participation. Thanks for all the questions. Thank you to our sponsors, Flat Creek Estate Winery, flatcreekestate.com, southpointdodge.com, and bondlane.com. Really appreciate all of their support. Thank you guys for joining us today, even though a lot of us were distracted by the game. Hopefully the Longhorns can pull it out. Thank you very much, CJ. Appreciate all your expertise. Matthew behind the scenes is always the real MVP. And for Matthew and for CJ, I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis. Until next time, hook 'em horns.
Welcome.